So the first term we're going to be looking at is the term systemic versus pulmonary. And here we're referring to the circulatory systems. Now, to get a good perspective on this, I'm not sure how much students really like this perspective, but on page 440, on the left-hand side is a figure that actually shows these two figures, or these two systems. So the systemic circulatory system versus the pulmonary circulatory system. So the idea behind this is, if you're with me in the picture, you might already notice, the systemic circulatory system is in charge of bringing oxygenated blood to the tissues of the body. So however you want to describe that is fine. I always just kind of start with the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, it's going to be squeezing hard and pushing blood up through the aortic semilunar valve and into the aorta. And from the aorta, we send blood through a series of tubes, a series of vessels to the rest of the body, the systems of the body. So you might want to flesh out a little bit more information on that, but that's kind of the general gist. The systemic circulatory system takes fully oxygenated blood from the left ventricle through the aorta to the rest of the body. The pulmonary circulatory system is different. We're going to start off with the right ventricle here. We're going to move up through the pulmonary semilunar valve into the pulmonary trunk. And from there, we're going to send blood out through the pulmonary arteries to where? To the lungs. So the right ventricle, through the pulmonary trunk, pulmonary arteries, and to the lungs. The point of the pulmonary circulatory system is to send the blood to get oxygenated. That's the point. The point of the systemic circulatory system is to oxygenate the tissues of the body. You want me to say that one more time? The systemic circulatory system, the point of the systemic circulatory system is to send fully oxygenated, bright red blood to the tissues of the body to make sure they get the oxygen that they need. The point of the pulmonary circulatory system is to actually take blood that has a lesser level of oxygen, which we oftentimes call it deoxygenated blood, which isn't entirely accurate, and we send it to the lungs in order to get it bright red and to get it fully oxygenated. Now, given that, I think it's time to discuss the terms artery and vein. Next week, we're going to be doing blood vessels, and so we're going to be looking at this kind of a thing here. We look at all the arteries and veins in the body. What we're looking at here, this would be the systemic circulatory system. The arteries are going to be red, and the veins are going to be blue. And that's a rule you can kind of count on, other than these guys here. So normally, when students consider what arteries are, they think, oh, well, arteries carry red blood. They carry blood that is fully oxygenated. That is not true. That's actually not always true. Arteries are vessels that bring blood away from the heart. They carry blood from the heart to something else. So when you think of arteries, think away. Arteries, away. And then the opposite thing with veins is that veins bring blood, return blood to the heart. Veins return blood to the heart. So, in this case, I don't know if you remember this from the video. Let me find one where it's much more clear. Let me find a model that I want to find. There's like a couple. Oh, this is a good one. Switch. Thank you. When you take a look at this, remember we found our pulmonary trunk earlier. And go ahead and find your pulmonary trunk and keep following it. You'll find your pulmonary. Do you remember what these were called? The branches from the pulmonary trunk? Pulmonary arteries. Notice that they're blue. Notice that they're blue. Pulmonary arteries are blue. And the things right below them are pulmonary veins, which are red. So you have to turn your mind a little bit when you're thinking about the pulmonary system. It just it changes from what you expect. Normally, in the systemic circulatory system, arteries are red, veins are blue. In the pulmonary system, though, arteries are blue, veins are red. Last concept is the coronary vessels. I have on Schoology, if you look, if you're in the Lab 2 cardiovascular folder, go all the way down to the bottom. Nope, not that one actually. Go to the list that says coronary vessels. So I have a list for you on Schoology of the ones I want you to know. They are found on page 437, 438. There's also another one that's kind of decent on page 440. I think it's a little bit confusing though. So I want you to work with your partners now and think about trying to find those 8 structures that I want you to find. We usually do 2 on the practical exam. We do 1 coronary artery and 1 coronary vein, so do expect those. Be able to find them on your models though, and I'm going to go over a couple of them in a little bit more detail. The idea behind coronary vessels is this. This myocardium, the inner wall layer, the inner layer of walls of your heart, is muscle that is extremely metabolic. You need a strong, long, sustained contraction. Therefore, those muscles require quite a lot of oxygen and they need stuff. Well, believe it or not, they can't get their nutrients from inside these chambers, even though they're right next to it. What happens is there's a little extra tube that comes from the aorta that actually pushes blood down on the outside of the heart, and it goes outside and dives back into the muscles. That's the point of the coronary vessels. So look over your list to get to know what they are conceptually, and I'll kind of come around and help you with some of those.